done and be ready to go for 12. Okay.
Hey, Council President, can you hear me? This is Councilor Edwards.
Yes, I can. Sound
Okay.
good. And
All right.
Good morning.
Morning.
Flynn and Fanny, you guys good on your sound? Bach and Brayton, everyone good on your end?
Yeah, I think it's working fine.
And everyone's connectivity seems to be okay. So that's
Good morning. Good morning, Kim.
We can see and hear you fine. Ed, how are you doing, Michael? You good?
Check, baby, 1, 2.
There it is. That's what I like to hear. Wonderful.
1, 2, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2.
Mejia, Arroyo, are you guys with us? And Frank's going to be a little bit late. Well, hopefully they'll join us.
We will certainly be inspired with Reverend Russo, that's for sure.
I'm really excited to have special guests join us in this meeting. This is exciting.
Very nice.
Yes. So, hey, Matt, do you have next week too? I mean, not next week, the week after?
I do.
Okay. Are you going to have a lovely surprise for us, I hope?
I shall try my best.
And if not, we still have the clerk's wonderful inspirational words.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes, indeed.
And I might find a new book.
Well, the clerk and I are both big fans of Kahil Gibran, so I know she's read from him in the past. But
Yes, I have.
Yep. Who's next on the luncheons, the council luncheon schedule? I know Jew Lady was digging that up for us.
I think it might be Flaherty.
It might be Flaherty. Flaherty, you thinking about hosting something for us?
Alligator Arms Flynn always throws me under the bus. Whatever you want, Madam Prez.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good opportunity for us to continue to move the work forward.
I love it. If it could be later in the afternoon, like in the evening, we can maybe consider adult beverages.
Yep, and maybe we can even do a real like luncheon, like have some Uber Eats do a little round or something, Grubhub or one of those companies that didn't bother to show up.
After Flynn's comments in the paper, I don't think I want any of them delivering my food.
I think Frank will have a taxi driver deliver it all for us.
That's right.
the next time Flaherty picks up the tab will be the first time Flaherty picks up the tab.
It's a rough group.
They ribbon you.
I hope this is all being streamed.
It is indeed, you guys. Quick reminder, friendly reminder. And
Liz, thank God I have a thick skin after all these years, Lynn. Liz.
So let me know when you get confirmation that your guest is with us. Okay.
Yeah.
Flaherty throws around quarters like the manhole covers.
I got my first opinion.
Hey, I'm gonna create a blooper reel
Humor.
for the city council meeting and repost it.
He'll be logged in a moment, momentarily.
Okay, just let us know. And then Carrie, of course, will give us the go ahead before we get started to make sure we're all set with our streaming. Oh, wait a minute. It says Michelle's on hold. What does that mean?
Thank you, Kim.
Hey, are you all set? It said there was a hold or something. Are you good?
Yep, I'm good. I just added my phone so I can actually see things. Thanks.
Okay. And Carrie, how are we doing on your end?
Just waiting for confirmation that we're up on boston.gov. And Chief Hooley's joining us now, so we'll be ready to go at 12 o'clock.
Excellent. And then hopefully our colleagues will chime in when they're available. And I know Frank is going to be late because he's responded that he'll be a little late.
morning, Chief Hooley. Thank you for joining us.
Get you off mute. Thank you. Good morning.
Very good. We're going to go through, Council President will call the meeting to order the way that we typically do.
Okay.
At some point, she'll introduce me to introduce you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's great to see your face.
It's good, yeah. Thanks. Good to see everybody.
Thank you.
And this will be the same format for the hearings tomorrow, right?
Very similar, yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you there, Chief.
Oh, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Hi, Chief. It's Maureen. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
You guys are busy, huh? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
As always.
Yeah, different kind of busy. It's,
Yeah, I'm
but the
sure.
city's still on the web, we don't, the overall call volume has not been what it normally is, but
Right.
see that when 50% of your calls are you're taking full isolation precautions, and
Right.
it's different.
Yeah. Frightening time.
Yeah.
But we're glad we have you on the job. That's for sure.
No, thanks. And everybody here appreciates support of the council collectively, individually, because everyone's, saying, hey, we're hearing from different folks, and
Yeah.
Chief Hooley, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you with us.
hi, Councilor Cheney.
How's everything?
Oh, pretty good news. How you holding up?
Pretty good. This is our first meeting with special guests since we went remote, so it's
Really?
cool to have you join us today.
No, thank you. It's strange. Normally we've had probably like 15 people down and trying to all cram in behind the.
Exactly. Taking the photo, having all of our staff line up to take photos of all of us crammed into the dais. Yes.
I know, it was no social, I know.
Well, we're so grateful for the work that you guys have been doing, not just now, but always. So, and we're going to get started in a few minutes as soon as we get the go ahead.
Green light for me. We're all set. We're rolling whenever you're ready to start.
And if our wonderful pastor, Annie, Reverend Russo, are you all set too?
Yes, thank you, Kim.
So wonderful to have you with us. Do you prefer Reverend Russo?
I prefer Annie from you.
In the meeting. In the meeting, though, I'm going to call you.
Yeah.
Reverend Russo. Thank you. So good to see your face. Carrie's given us the okay. Hopefully our colleagues who are late, let me just see if I got a little text from either of them. Okay. Nothing. So I think we're going to have to, Arroyo Mejia. Okay, so we'll have to keep a lookout for when they pop in here, I guess. Hopefully I will catch it. Somebody send me a text if I miss it. Hey, if you guys, let me tell them, if you join late, to write something in the chat. Okay, I think we should probably go ahead and get started then. Carrie, we're good?
Yep, ready to go.
All righty. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll to ascertain the presence of quorum?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Baker. Councilor Bach.
Present.
Councilor Braden.
Present.
Councilor Campbell.
Present.
Councilor Edwards.
Present.
Councilor Sabi George.
Present.
Counselor Flaherty,
Here.
Counselor Flynn,
Here.
Counselor Janey,
Present.
Counselor Mejia,
Present.
Counselor O'Malley,
Present.
and Counselor Wu.
Present.
Madam President, we have a quorum.
Wonderful. I've been informed by the clerk that a quorum is present, and today we have a special treat. We have special guests joining us for the first time during one of our remote virtual city council meetings, and I'm excited to bring up Counselor O'Malley, who will introduce our special guest who will do the invocation. Counselor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, colleagues, and to all those who are watching. We've been doing these Zoom virtual meetings since the pandemic really began to unfold. This is the first time, as the Council President said, that we've brought in or continued our practice of bringing in a respected and really well-valued, well-cherished member of the clergy from our district. It is fitting. I've been looking forward to inviting my dear friend, the Reverend Annie Rousseau, who this marks her 10th time doing it with me. Every year since I've been on this body, I've asked Reverend Rousseau to join us and offer some words. I had been looking forward to mark her 10th anniversary of joining us. Looking forward to taking her to a nice lunch at Ruth's Chris after the council meeting. So that may have to wait a couple weeks, a couple months. But needless to say, Reverend Rousseau is a remarkable leader in the church, in the community. She does such great work for affordable housing, for social justice, for progressive candidates and causes that she and we feel so strongly about. She really is a remarkable leader and just someone I'm proud to call a friend. She's affiliated with the Hope Central Church in Jamaica Plain, one of our wonderful local houses of worship. She and her wife, Nancy, just do remarkable volunteerism throughout Jamaica Plain and Southwest Boston. She's a dear friend, a great person of faith, and someone who I'm very lucky to call a constituent and even more lucky to call a friend. So please join me in virtually welcoming the Reverend Anne Rousseau for our invocation this morning.
Thank you, Counselor O'Malley. And it is good and right to be with you. It's wonderful to see all these beautiful faces. Let us pray. God of every time and every place, we ask that you be with us now in this time of uncertainty, when we feel as if we are standing on shifting sand. Steady us and give us solid ground to stand on. And God, we ask that you give us the courage we need, not to stand in one place, but to continue to move forward. God of comfort, our grief is weighing us down. It feels as if our backs will break along with our hearts. We pray for all those who are grieving the loss of a loved one. Ease our deep sadness of not being able to say our final goodbyes, or hold their hands as they rested in your power. Tend our grief. Hold us as we weep. Ever-present God, be with us in our isolation. Be close to us in our distancing. We pray for those who are suffering the loss of human contact, the touch of family or friend, the loss of celebrations. Be with those who are afraid. Quiet their fears. Let them feel your gentle, loving touch. God of awesome holiness, may we never forget that all your children are holy. Help us break the societal false hierarchy of who is valuable and who is not. And may we never lose sight of the sacredness in each of us, and that we are all essential human beings. God of truth, let us remember the lessons of this time. Open our eyes wide so that we can no longer be surprised when we see the inequalities that were always there. How communities of color suffer the most, not just now, but always. God of glory, strengthen us to help shape a city where our values are actualized so that everyone has a decent home and the opportunity to earn a living wage, where every child has a good school and all neighborhoods are free from violence. God of power, bless these city councilors and all public servants. May they be given the power of discernment to know what is right and good for all the residents of Boston. Multiply their courage so that they dare to accept the challenges that diminish and separate us. Inspire them so that they may be the source of bold ideas. Grace them with empathy so that they may be compassionate leaders of our city. We ask your blessings too on their families, colleagues, and dedicated staff who support them in their work. God, no matter how exhausted we are, may we always be able to celebrate the joy in moments of justice and to always have hope. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend Russo. That was very inspiring. I hope that you will join us as we pledge allegiance to our flag.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of
United
America,
States of America. And
to the
and the
republic
republic for which it
for which
stands,
it stands,
one nation,
One
nation,
God,
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
and
liberty,
liberty and justice
justice.
for all.
Thank you again, Reverend Russo. Feel free if you must excuse yourself. We are very grateful to have you join us today, and not just for those inspiring words, but really for your partnership with the council and all of those social justice issues that you champion. Thank you, Councilor O'Malley, for bringing and inviting this wonderful guest to join us. At this time, we have another special guest and another special presentation, and I am going to ask that Councilor Asabi George come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Madam President. I had my finger on that mute button. As you all know, our EMS practitioners are always on the front line, providing critical care to Boston's residents on a regular basis. They field on average 110,000 911 calls and transport nearly 73,000 people to area hospitals, as they play an important role connecting our homeless population to services, as well as providing necessary immediate treatment for those suffering from an opioid overdose. The EMS department is filled with people who are heroes every day. This week is National Emergency Medical Services Week, honoring all EMS practitioners. Yesterday and last week, I had the opportunity to go with the BPPA EMS Union President, Mike McNeil, to visit some of his members and serve them lunch. And breakfast. I know a number of my colleagues have had the opportunity to do that over the last few weeks, as our EMS personnel have really seen the front lines of this pandemic and have really bared a lot of the brunt of assisting any one of our residents when they're in their time of need, when they're in their time of panic and worry, and not just aiding our residents when they're not feeling well and feeling scared, but also supporting their loved ones as they come into their homes. So just want to especially thank all the members of EMS for their work every day, but especially during this time. And normally we would have the chief here with a team, but luckily today we do have Chief Hooley with us today to receive this resolution that I hope that will pass later in this hearing today. But Chief Hooley, who's been part of the EMS family for 35 plus years, has always been a steadfast leader in his work on behalf of our residents and responding to them in their time of need. We are deeply grateful, Chief, for your work on behalf of the City of Boston, on behalf of the 400 EMTs here in the City of Boston. We celebrate you and all that your department does, and look forward to later in the hearing suspending the rules and passing this resolution that's before the body. But we'd love to welcome you, to bring greetings and celebrate the work of your members. Thank you, Chief Hooley, and welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Councilor, Madam President, all the councilors. Thank you very much. It is, I mean, we're all in between Zooms and Google Chats and everything else. I know we're all trying to get used to that. But it's, yeah, it's kind of sad that we don't have like 15, 20 of us down there and, just coming in, for the beginning of it to say the Pledge of Allegiance together, be there for the opening prayer and invocation. It was always a very nice thing. It was always something we look forward to coming down, and everybody got to see the councilors, and hey, a lot, and most people live here, so they get to see their own District 1, they're citywide, and one good thing about Boston is the councilors, they're usually not strangers to people. People know them. They you see them in the stores, the markets, you see them at events. So that's true, so it's on the one hand, it's kind of sad that we're not down there today, but it's still very important that virtually that we're here for this. And it's really to thank you all for that recognition. And this week is important, not just for us, but for the profession that that we chose and that we've been serving. But for the folks in Boston, Boston EMS, we do take great pride that it is Boston that's on our sleeves, on our uniform, that we're representing a city that cares for its EMS, always has, and we do very much appreciate that, the support that we've gotten from the city, from this body, and all I can really say is thank you.
Thank you, Chief Hooley. We owe you and your team a debt of gratitude. So many thanks to you for all of the work that you do every day, not just during COVID, but again, pre-COVID, post-COVID. You do a lot to keep us all safe, and we're really grateful. So thank you for joining us, and please extend our warm wishes, our well wishes, our thoughts, our caring support to all of your folks on your team. And I'm hopeful, as Councilor Sabi George is that we will pass that resolution expressing our continued support for you and your members. So thank you for being here. We will now move on. We can thank you again and again. This is a public meeting, feel free to stay, but if you have other items, please feel free to excuse yourself. We are really grateful to have you join us. This is really special. So thank you again, Chief Hooley. We will.
Thank you very much. And we will communicate those nice wishes to everybody. We'll do that this afternoon. We'll get it out. We'll make sure to do that. And I do have a couple of other things I've got to do. And I get some kind of meeting I got to prepare for tomorrow too. So I'll see you all tomorrow.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right, talking about that hearing coming up. Thank you to Chief Hooley. But before we move on, let's, Madam Clerk, if you could amend the attendance report to reflect that Councilor Arroyo has joined us.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And now we will move on to the first order of business, which is the approval of the minutes. If there are no corrections to be made, the minutes of the last meeting will stand approved. Seeing and hearing no objections, the minutes are so approved. Wonderful. We will now move on to communications from His Honor Mayor. Madam Clerk, if you could read dockets 0703 through 0708 together, that would be great.
Thank you, Madam President. Docket 0703, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $1,541,466 in the form of a grant for additional home delivered meals for seniors awarded by the United States Department of Health and Human Services, passed through the Mass Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs to be administered by the Elderly Commission. The grant will fund federal FY20 Title III-C2/CARES Act. Docket 0704, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $1,056,840 in the form of a grant for the FY20 Council on Aging Formula Grant awarded by the Mass Executive Office of Elder Affairs. The grant will fund the continued operation of the Commission's health and housing units and related services. Docket 0705, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $567,216.25 in the form of a grant for additional senior meals and administrative costs awarded by the United States Department of Health and Human Services, passed through the Mass Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs to be administered by the Elderly Commission. The grant will fund the FY20 Families First Corona Response Act, Titled 3-C. Docket number 0706, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $324,860 in the form of a grant for the federal FY20 Title 3B Supportive Services for COVID-19 CARES Act, awarded by the United States Department of Health and Human Services, passed through the Mass Executive Office of Elder Affairs to be administered by the Elderly Commission. The grant will fund additional services such as homemakers and health aides to seniors in Boston. Docket number 0707, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $274,437 in the form of a grant for additional caregiver services to seniors in Boston, awarded by the United States Department of Health and Human Services, passed through the Mass Executive Office of Elder Affairs to be administered by the Elderly Commission. The grant will fund the FY20 Title 3E COVID-19 CARES Act. And docket number 0708, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $237,863 in the form of a grant for the city of Boston's administrative costs for senior program services, awarded by the United States Department of Health and Human Services, passed through the Mass Executive Office of Elder Affairs to be administered by the Elderly Commission. The grant will fund the federal FY20 Title III CARES Act Area Plan Administration.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Docket 0703 through 0708 will be referred to the Committee on Strong Women and Families. Before we go on to docket 0709, if you could amend the attendance report again to reflect that Councilor Baker is also here with us. So we have a full house.
Full house.
Now we will move on to docket 0709.
Thank you, Madam President. Docket 0709, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $48,553.44 in the form of a grant for the FY20 State Elder Lunch Earmark with CARES Act supplement, awarded by the Mass Executive Office of Elder Affairs to be administered by the Elderly Commission. The grant will fund additional meals for seniors in Boston.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden. Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you so much. We are living through an extraordinary time here in Boston with this pandemic and this health emergency. It has thrown light on our most vulnerable citizens, many of whom are our elders in our community. And our colleagues at Age Strong Boston have coordinated meal delivery and social and emotional support for thousands of our seniors at this difficult time. I respectfully request suspension of the rules and passage of an order to accept and expend these funds so that they can be put to use as soon as possible to support meals for our elders across the city. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilor Braden seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0709. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
And docket 0709 has been passed. Madam Clerk, we'll now move on to docket 0710.
Docket 0710, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $30,722.91 in the form of a grant for the federal FY16 Innovations in Community-Based Crime Reduction, formerly the Burn Criminal Justice, passed through the Boston Public Health Commission to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund and the purchase and installation of video cameras in the Bowdoin, Geneva neighborhood, and also training police in crime prevention through environmental design.
Thank you so much. Docket 0710 will be referred to the Committee of Public Safety and Criminal Justice. Madam Clerk, could you please read docket 0711?
Docket 0711, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $27,960 in the form of a grant for additional long-term care services funded by the CARES Act, awarded by the United States Department of Health and Human Services, passed through the Mass Executive Office of Elder Affairs, to be administered by the Elderly Commission. The grant will fund federal FY20 Title III Ombudsman Services.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden. Councilor Braden, you have the floor. Councilor Braden, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Chair. I respectfully asked my colleagues to suspend the rules and suspend the rules and ask for passage of this order to accept and expend these funds at the earliest possible moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilor Braden seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0711. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and docket 0711 has been passed. We will now move on to docket 0712. Madam Clerk.
Docket 0712, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $2,500 in the form of a grant for the Census Rapid Response, awarded by the National League of Cities, to be administered by the Department of Intergovernmental Relations. The grant will fund census outreach to historically undercounted and hard to count communities.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Arroyo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. The census is critically important for our communities. It's very important that we have folks counted. We are historically a difficult city to count, and this money would go towards addressing that. For that reason, I asked for suspension and passage so that this $2,500 can go to the rapid response census.
Thank you so much. Councilor Arroyo seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0712. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Ayes have it. Docket 0712 has been passed. We will now move on to reports of public officers and others. Madam Clerk, could you please read dockets 0713 through 0715?
Docket 0713, notices received from the City Clerk in accordance with Chapter 6 of the Ordinances of 1979 regarding action taken by the mayor on papers acted upon by the City Council at its meeting of April 29th, 2020. Docket number 0714, notices received from the City Clerk in accordance with Chapter 6 of the Ordinances of 1979 regarding action taken by the mayor on papers acted upon by the City Council at its meeting of May 6, 2020. Docket number 0715, notices received from the Auditing Department providing a list of fiscal 2020 reallocations made by the mayor prior to April 15, 2020 for the purpose of continuing operations.
Thank you so much. Docket 0713 through 0715 will be placed on file. We'll now move on to matters recently heard for possible action. And Madam Clerk, if you could read dockets 0588 through 0598 together, that would be great.
Thank you, Madam President. Docket 0588 through 0590. Order for the FY21 operating budget, including annual appropriations for departmental operations, the school department, and for other post-employment benefits known as OPEB. Docket 0591 through 0592, orders for capital fund transfer appropriations. Docket number 0593 through 0596, orders for capital budget, including loan orders, lease purchase agreements. And docket number 0598, message and order approving an appropriation of $4,400,000 from the 21st Century Fund, also known as the Public Educational and Governmental PEG Access and Cable Related Fund, pursuant to Section 53F and 3/4 of Chapter 44 of the General Laws, to the PEG Access and Cable Related Grant for Cable Related Purposes, consistent with the franchise agreement between the cable operator and the city, including but not limited to: 1, supporting public educational governmental access cable television services; 2, monitoring compliance of cable operator with the franchise agreement; or 3, preparation of renewal of the franchise license.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councillor Bach. Councillor Bach is the chair of committee, the Ways and Means Committee. Councillor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam President. It was another busy week of budget review on the council. I want to thank all my colleagues for participating. Last week on Thursday, after our last council meeting, we had hearings on environment, talking about the city's efforts on climate change and enacting the provisions of the wetlands ordinance, and then focusing on parks and recreation. And we also had a pulled out hearing focused on the Landmarks Commission, which is within the Environment Department. So those were a great series of conversations, I think really important continuing priorities for the city. And then yesterday we had another pair of hearings with BPS on sort of the academic programs writ large across the district, and on parent and youth engagement and the Build BPS capital plans. So again, those have been really thoughtful, thorough, and I appreciate councilors' participations in the hearings, but also in the working sessions to help generate questions in advance. We have our final working session after this meeting this afternoon, focused on BPS, specifically transportation, the admin central budget, food and nutrition services, and then kind of COVID-19 learning loss recovery, summer credit recovery. So another important set of topics. So if folks are able to dip in to ask some questions there, that'd be great. And I'm looking forward tomorrow, as Chief Hooley alluded to, we've got our public safety departments coming in, and also the Boston Public Health Commission, whose work, as we all know, is so critical right now. And we're looking ahead to do it ISD, BPDA, and BPS again next week. So my recommendation, Madam President, is that these matters remain in committee for future action.
Thank you so much. Docket 0588 through 0598 will remain in the Committee of Ways and Means. And now we will move on to docket 0621. Madam Clerk, could you please do the honors?
Thank you. Docket 0621, order for hearing regarding all department FY20 budget surpluses.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councillor Wu, who is the chair of our post-audit committee. Councillor Wu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. We had a really insightful and productive hearing on Monday afternoon on this matter that was sponsored by Councillor Flaherty. We reviewed with Justin Sterrett, the City of Boston's budget director, the various changes and deficits and potential surpluses from the FY20 fiscal year that we're currently in. A quick overview: the potential deficits include police and fire overtime and more expensive than anticipated trash and recycling removal. Potential surpluses in the budget include snow removal, which was not needed, utilities rates citywide, employee health insurance, and parking tickets and meters processing. However, there have been additional changes to the revenue reductions expected given the global pandemic. For example, our excise taxes, meals, occupancy, and aircraft fuel, parking fines and meter fees are not being enforced. And so that is a large, significant drop. Interest on investments and other departmental revenues such as licenses and permits. So because the budget is largely based on property taxes, the impact won't be felt directly this next fiscal year, as Councillor Bach can tell us in way more detail. We do know that much of the additional surplus that came in from the building boom and permits and development in this last fiscal year has now been largely accounted for due to these projected deficits and increased need on the city side. It was a very helpful discussion, and I want to thank Councillor Flaherty for bringing it up and hope he will chime in as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I will recognize, thank you for that thorough report, Councillor Wu, and I will recognize the lead sponsor of that hearing order. If you'd like to make a few brief remarks, Councillor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and obviously thank you to Chair Councilor Wu for hosting the hearing, as well as all my colleagues who attended. I also want to thank Justin Sterrett, the Budget Director, for attending during an extremely busy time, particularly for the budget team as we're going through the city's budget through our Ways and Means Committee. I called for the hearing as we're approaching the end of the fourth quarter and wanted to see if any city departments would have any budget surpluses that could be redirected due to the COVID-19 response and efforts. I have to say, Justin ran through a pretty thorough presentation describing our city spending and expenses to date, highlighted some potential surpluses and deficits and expected revenue deductions as a result of COVID-19. So while we were on this particular topic, I think we had the opportunity, each of us, to kind of kick the tires in a couple other areas. And I know that our Chair of Ways and Means, our colleague Councilor Bach, was present and probably would find it just as informative from her perspective as well. During the hearing, Justin also mentioned how redirecting funds to pay for COVID-19 expenses potentially could cause us to lose out on potential reimbursement from the federal government and related sources, which I found to be very interesting. So overall, it was an important conversation to have, and we continue to deal with, as we continue to deal with the impacts of COVID-19 on our municipal budget. As the council municipal branch and fiscal stewards of our city, I look forward to continuing to have these types of conversations with the administration and through our budget discussions as well. So thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thanks for the Madam President. Thank you to the chair for hosting.
Thank you so much. Docket 0621 will remain in the post-audit committee. Madam Clerk, will now take docket 0606 through 0608 together, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Docket 0606, message and order authorizing a limit for the Boston Public Schools revolving fund for fiscal year 2021 to support the maintenance and repair of BPS facilities, including custodial and utility costs for extended building time, school police costs associated with events, floor refinishing, landscaping and building repairs, receipts from lease, permit for use and parking fees for BPS facilities will be deposited in the fund. BPS will be the only unit authorized to expend from the fund, and such expenditures shall not exceed $2,600,000. Docket number 0607, message and order authorizing the city a limit for the Boston Public Schools revolving fund for fiscal year 2021 to repair and purchase Boston Public Schools computer technology, including computers, mobile devices, and instructional software. The revolving fund shall be credited with any and all receipts from equipment sales and repair fees for the Boston Public Schools technology. Receipts and resulting expenditures from this fund shall not exceed $2 million. Docket number 0608, message and order authorizing a limit for the Boston Public Schools revolving fund for the fiscal year 2021 for the Boston Public Schools transportation costs, including bus and public transportation costs. The revolving fund shall be credited with revenue received from Boston Public School Department for the provisions of transportation of groups and title entities for field trips and activities other than transportation to and from school. Receipts and resulting expenditures from this fund shall not exceed $120,000.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The chair recognizes Councilor Bach, the chair of our Committee on Ways and Means. Councilor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Yes, these revolving funds where the council needs to approve the maximum limit were also considered in our BPS hearings yesterday. But we're actually still waiting on some clarificatory information from BPS on them. And I expect that we'll vote on these revolving funds at the same time as we're taking an initial vote on the whole budget. So I would ask that these matters remain in committee.
Thank you. Docket 0606 through 0608 will remain in the Ways and Means Committee. And now we will move on to motions, orders, and resolutions. Madam Clerk, could you please read docket 0716?
Docket 0716, Councilor Flynn offered the following resolution commemorating Memorial Day and honoring those who made the supreme sacrifice for our country.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilor Flynn. Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, may I add Council Flaherty as an original co-sponsor?
Seeing and hearing no objections, Council Flaherty is so added.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I filed this resolution in advance of Memorial Day on Monday so that the City Council can honor those who made the supreme sacrifice in service to our country, including our Gold Star families. Memorial Day was known as Decoration Day in the past and started as a day for people to decorate the graves of the war dead with flowers after the Civil War. Decoration Day continued to be observed on the local level, and in 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which established Memorial Day as the last Monday in May. The change went into effect in 1971. On Memorial Day, the country pays respects to more than 1.1 million American military personnel who made the supreme sacrifice for their country while serving in uniform, as well as to Gold Star families whose family members died in uniform. This is a solemn day. Boston itself has numerous events commemorating Memorial Day, but because of this pandemic this year, many of those events are suspended or being conducted virtually. I'm also working with Commissioner Rob Santiago on some outreach to veterans and to commemorate Memorial Day as well. However, the City of Boston's veteran services, as I mentioned, and veteran organizations are still safely and individually placing flags at our military cemeteries in honor of those that pay the supreme sacrifice for our country, again, including our Gold Star families. So I'm filing this resolution today because it is important that we recognize the sacrifices, the services, the bravery of all those, and making sure that they're never forgotten. Memorial Day for many, unfortunately, is the start of summer, but for many families that lost a loved one, every day is Memorial Day. And so that pain and that suffering that those families have lost on behalf of our country is something we should think about and say a silent prayer. It's a solemn day as we recognize our Gold Star families and those that paid the supreme sacrifice for our country. Thank you, Madam President, for giving me the opportunity to speak. And I ask that we suspend and pass. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm proud to join with our colleague. Both Ed and I, we come from a neighborhood and obviously a city that does not forget the men and women who have served our country, in particular in our neighborhood of South Boston. The very first Vietnam memorial in the country was there at Medal of Honor Park up at M Street Park. So come from sort of a proud line in history of residents and neighbors who have made that contribution. And quite frankly, also on behalf of all of us here in the council, we're really proud of Councilor Flynn being a Navy veteran. The council, and I know Madam Clerk can attest to this over the years, we've all been very supportive of our veterans, but having Councilor Flynn on our body has really taken it to a new level. And the respect that he has out there in veteran circles is tremendous. It's a tremendous asset for this body to have Ed as that liaison, if you will, that connection to our veterans organizations, not just across the city, but across the state. And I see it when I'm at these veterans events and I see the veterans making their way over to make sure that they get a chance to get a few minutes with Councilor Flynn, and or they'll start to talk about a particular issue. And it sort of transcends the work that we do in the council, because Ed, no matter who you are or where you're from, if you're a veteran, he's automatically trying to help folks and get on the phone and connect them to resources. So proud to support this resolution, proud to serve as a colleague with Councilor Flynn as a Navy veteran. And also this is a very solemn weekend recognizing those that have made the ultimate sacrifice. So for those that have served and those that have loved one that served, I also know I can speak for our colleague, Councilor Lydia Edwards, and her mother being in the service. Obviously, my dad was in the Navy as well. So anybody that has a family member that has been in the service, we all know the family sacrifices that go with that. But to actually have to lose somebody and or to be a Gold Star parent or a Gold Star family, our thoughts and prayers and remembrances will be with them this weekend. It's usually a time, pre-COVID, when folks are getting outdoors and they're getting the grill going and they're celebrating and participating. But there is a piece of this that needs to be recognized, and that's a very solemn piece that people made the ultimate sacrifice. They committed themselves selflessly for our country and for all of our values, and as a result of which they've lost their life. So thank you, Madam President, and happy to be a participant here and to move forward for adoption.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. The chair recognizes Councilor Edwards for some brief remarks. Councilor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I want to thank the makers for their leadership. Councilor Flynn, consistently have demonstrated that you never forget and will always lead with a narrative and perspective of those who served. And that is in part because of your own experience, but also because of your great heart. Councilor Flaherty, thank you also so much for the comments and acknowledging that, you know, if we, in many cases, if we don't recognize Memorial Day, many people forget the whole point and the goal of it. It is to reflect and to pause. And I just want to also recognize that there are many warriors who died for this country, a country that wouldn't recognize their own humanity, even though they were fighting for it. As I told the story of my great uncle who died as part of integrating the troops in Korea, these days are particularly important for us to remember. My great uncle died for an America he never got to see. As did many African Americans, many women, many gay and lesbian warriors, many people of color fought for the American promises that they loved and adopted and were willing to die for, but many of them could never see because the country wasn't ready to recognize their own humanity. So I say today is not just a day to recognize those who have died, but to recognize that the country is moving in a beautiful way and moving in a way toward a vision that they were dying for. So I am thankful so much, Councilor Flynn, that you brought this up, and because many of us can't even get together to even celebrate and have the parades or have the gatherings that the many veterans do rely on as part of just a recognition of not just their services, but the colleagues who they serve with who died. So thank you so much, Councilor Flynn.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Asabi George. Councilor Asabi George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the maker, lead sponsor and co-sponsor for bringing this before us today. I certainly will support it and think that it's so important that we do these things. I do want to bring just special note, and I know that Councilor Flynn in particular has paid particular attention to the group of veterans who have passed away during this pandemic, both from COVID-19 and other causes. So during this Memorial Day, and during this period, we haven't been able to celebrate those lives and their passing in the way that they have deserved. And so many places across our country and across our state and across our city won't have the decorating of the burial sites. And for that, it's an additional sadness for sure for many communities and many of us. So just want to pay particular attention during this Memorial Day recognition that we are thinking especially and praying especially hard for those that have been lost, who have served our country over these last few months, that haven't had the opportunity to have celebrated their lives the way that we should have. Please add my name and thank you again, Madam President.
Thank you so much. And just to echo all of the sentiments in terms of Councilor Flynn's leadership, deeply, deeply appreciated here, and certainly want to echo the sentiments of expressing our deep gratitude to all those who serve, especially those who make the ultimate sacrifice. So at this time, we'll take a show of hands for those who want to add their name. Madam Clerk, if you could please add Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Braden, Councilor Bach, Councilor Arroyo, Councilor Baker, Councilor Edwards, Councilor Mejia, Councilor Campbell, you already have Councilor Asabi George, Councilor Wu, and please also add the chair. I think that's all of us there. Councilor Flynn seeks suspension of the rules and adoption of docket 0716. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Docket 0716 has been adopted. Now we'll move on to docket 0717, Madam Clerk.
Docket 0717, Councilor Sabi George offered the following resolution, recognizing May 17th to the 23rd, 2020 as National Emergency Medical Services, or EMS Week.
Thank you. Councillor Sabi George, you have the floor.
Thank you again, Madam President, and thank you to all of our colleagues for just welcoming Chief Hooley earlier in our program. And I'm not going to reiterate word for word what I read during the when presenting this resolution before the council before the start of the meeting, but just we recognize, I think we all recognize the important role that our frontline responders, our 400 or so EMTs for the city of Boston, what they've done, not just during this time, but especially during this time, the risks that they've taken and the ease in which they've probably offered so many of our residents during a time of great worry, a time of great fear. And they are the ones responding to the call, literally and figuratively. So I ask for suspension of the rules and passage of this resolution, acknowledging this week as National EMS Week here in the city of Boston. Thank you, Madam President.
Wonderful. And not seeing any blue hands, we'll move on to sign our name. Those who would like to sign their name, Madam Clerk, if you could please add Councillor O'Malley, Councillor Braden, Councillor Flynn, Councillor Mejia, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Baker, Councillor Arroyo, Councillor Bach, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Wu, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Wu, you're throwing me off because you're on here twice. Councillor Wu, Councillor Campbell, and please add the chair again. I think that's all of us.
It is.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Councillor Sabi George seeks suspension of the rules and adoption of docket 0717. All those in favor say aye.
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 Ayes have it, and docket 0717 has been adopted. We'll move on to docket 0718. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Docket 0718, Councilor O'Malley offered the following order for hearing to discuss the phases of implementing net zero carbon requirements for all new buildings in the city of Boston.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The chair recognizes Councilor O'Malley. Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I wanted to begin just by acknowledging the incredible warriors of the BCEC, the Boston Climate Action Council, who've really done, the Boston Clean Energy Coalition. We have a lot of acronyms in our world, but the Boston Clean Energy Coalition has done some remarkable work in this space. We've really put together a vibrant and diverse group that looks like and reflects the vibrancy and the diversity of the city that we love. Virtually every neighborhood is represented, and we've been working on this issue for a number of years alongside all of you, all members of this council, newer members of this council, more established members of the council, former members of this council have been united, really addressing the fact that to save our climate, we need to start with our buildings. We are acutely aware of that in Boston, where greenhouse gas emissions, upwards of 65, perhaps 70% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from our buildings. So we've been very active, very aggressive in the years. I just want to briefly go through what we've been doing in this space. The first hearing on NZC, or Net Zero Carbon Future Construction, was in December of 2017. Subsequently, in 2018, there were 3 robust working sessions. We submitted a committee report of 11 policy suggestions. We passed a resolution in support of some state initiatives in 2018. Last November, we voted as a body on a more efficient international energy conservation code alongside the Mass Climate Action Network, or MCAN. Special shout out to the at-large council from Rosendale for her partnership and leadership as it relates to new municipal buildings. We led in that space in March of last year, 9 months after our resolution, and because of our advocacy, Mayor Walsh signed an executive order, which now mandates that all new municipal buildings will be NZC, net zero carbon that is. And through the early steps of some of our budget hearings in this fiscal year, it's been really gratifying to see why, well, we know why it's important, but to see what the plans are at the city to make sure that we have NZC buildings going forward. What that means both from a taxpayer point of view, these buildings can often save and almost always over the length of the life of the building save significant money, as well as the health associated with that. Also in that time, from the non-council level, we saw the Boston Green Ribbon Commissions releasing their Carbon-Free Boston report in January of last year, which talks about Boston being carbon neutral by 2050, which includes deepening efficiency while reducing demand, increasing electrification, and purchasing 100% clean energy, as well as mandating net zero carbon in buildings. We've seen the city's own climate action plan, which calls for strengthening green requirements to a net zero carbon standard. We're seeing both the BPDA and our small business development looking at new carbon neutral building assessments, mandating them on new buildings, as well as strengthening Article 37, which sets environmental benchmarks, which we hope to meet and exceed. Finally, the BPDA has begun a public process on new zoning requirements going forward. DMD, a great partner of ours, has been literally written a guidebook on net zero carbon buildings and has found definitively time after time after time that the cost increase is negligible, that there is no upfront additional cost, and that these buildings save money over the long run. USGBC, the United States Green Building Code Coalition, has also found that and proven it beyond a reasonable doubt, that you build efficiently, you build a net zero carbon, you can save taxpayers money. That's sort of the fiscal stewardship piece of our job. The second is the environmental health aspects, which we know. I've already talked about the huge greenhouse gas emissions that come from these buildings. Those high greenhouse gas emissions also exacerbate the health disparities which currently exist. This is readily apparent as we fight our pandemic. Low-income communities, communities of color are often exposed to more indoor and outdoor pollution. We see increased rates of asthma, COPD, other respiratory challenges. Sadly, that has really been made incredibly clear as we fight COVID-19, as we see some of these real health disparities and how we address them. So this is not only the environmental piece or the fiscal steward piece, this is the public health piece as well. Now, again, we have seen this opportunity, this crisis, looking at the opportunity as we begin thinking about reopening, as we begin thinking about how we're going to move as a city, as a region, as a country going forward. We need to be cognizant of the fact that we need to act on climate. The ramifications of inaction are too numerous to list. And as it relates to our building code, as it relates to what we want to see a future to look like, this is going to be a crucial part, which will not only make a greener city, make a stronger city, a safer city, a more resilient city, but as has been proven time and again, an economic impact which will actually benefit the ratepayer, benefit the builder, benefit the taxpayer. The purpose of this hearing is to figure out what we're doing. I've ticked off probably 4 or 5 different city departments, some state, some federal agencies, fewer federal agencies now, but federal organizations like the USBG, which are really doing the right things, saying the right things, putting the right plans together. We want to make sure that this is done collaboratively. We want to make sure that we are acting with great rapidity going forward. This is our opportunity. We need to make sure that we're smart, that we're effective, and that we're aggressive as it relates to our building going forward. It is one of the most important things we can do as a city, looking as we begin the slow and perhaps painful process of reopening the city of Boston, looking at what the construction atmosphere and real estate market looks like. This is a way that we can build greener cities, provide for better resiliency as a coastal city, and save both ratepayer and taxpayer money in doing so. I am incredibly excited about the work that we've been able to achieve thus far and look forward to even more going forward. Thank you very much. Thank you to all my colleagues who have really been great leaders in this space as well. I'm just one of the many members of this team and really delighted for our continued partnership and leadership going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, the chair recognizes Councillor Bach. Councillor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I really want to commend the maker for bringing this to the council and for all his work on this issue. And I'd ask you to add my name. It did come up in our budget hearings. I think that there are 2 ways for us to think about these kinds of changes that we need to make to our building stock. One is to look at the buildings we have now and say, oh, that seems hard. And another is to look at the targets we've set and the targets that, frankly, we have to hit in order to combat climate change, and to say, oh, like, we can't get there from here without changing the way that we do business. And I just think that in that game, every month, every 6 months, every year that we lose really sets us back. And the realities of COVID-19 don't actually change that climate clock. So I'm really glad that Councilor O'Malley is expressing the urgency of this. I think there's a ton of promising directions that city departments are already going in. And that, and we have neighbors. Brookline's already banned new fossil fuel infrastructure in its new buildings. It just makes sense to me that we have such a huge task in terms of retrofitting Boston's building stock that we cannot be building new buildings now that we will have to retrofit in order to reach our targets. So I'm really looking forward to this hearing, and thanks so much.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Arroyo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd just like to commend the maker. This is a incredibly important issue as we move forward and we realize that the normal that existed even a couple months ago is no longer the normal we have. Climate change is something that's going to leave a lasting impact for generations to come. It is a incredibly important issue, and anything we can do today to really make an impact on that has to happen. I don't think it's a choice really in terms of the kind of severity that we're looking at, the same way that this pandemic forced our hands in making really quick decisions and having to really make difficult, painful decisions for a lot of folks. That's the kind of issues that we're trying to avoid by making this kind of action now. These things that may seem difficult now will actually look incredibly smart and incredibly forward-thinking later. So I commend the maker, add my name. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden. Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to commend my colleague, Councillor O'Malley, for his leadership in this area, very consistent and vigorous leadership over many, many years. Addressing the issue of carbon neutral buildings is a really important part of the puzzle as we try to reach a carbon neutral city of Boston by 2050. It's not that long away. And I echo Councillor Box's assertion that all of our new buildings should be aspiring to be as carbon neutral going forward. We're in the middle of a huge building boom in Boston, the likes of which we haven't seen in a very long time. All of these new buildings need to be, as many as possible, need to be carbon neutral. And the urgency is palpable. When we see what's happening out in the Midwest with exceptional precipitation levels and what's happening, this is a global emergency, and anything we can do at the local level to help address the issue is of vital importance. So I commend the maker again and look forward to working on this issue going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councillor Edwards. Councillor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I echo my colleagues' comments in thanking Councillor O'Malley and congratulating him continually on pushing the envelope and demanding that the City of Boston talk and walk the theme and the commitment of climate resiliency. I think, if in anything, this is going to demonstrate that we are going to lead the way, and we're going to also be setting standards for generations to come, and they can look back on this moment. I want to also say that ultimately, if we do not truly invest in new buildings coming online at a certain standard, then we might as well admit that we don't truly and aren't committed to having a carbon net zero city. We are going to be building a great deal. And ultimately, we're going to save more money. And I think I can't help but thank again, Councillor O'Malley, for coming with he came at it at all different levels. But ultimately, if this is about money for some people, we're going to save money. It's going to be cheaper for us to build better standards for our communities than to sit there and continue on with the old standards and hope for the best. I live at my community is an environmental justice community. It is where we are already facing higher levels of asthma, COPD. We see the regular impact of environmental justice and not planning for people's health and not planning for a greener society. So we can't afford to close our eyes anymore. This is incredibly forward thinking, and I'm so excited for this hearing. And I just have to commend again the maker for your leadership.
Thank you so much, Councillor Edwards. The chair recognizes Councillor Campbell. Councillor Campbell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I too echo my colleagues in applauding Council O'Malley for your continued and consistent leadership with respect to environmental issues. It is quite contagious in terms of the passion you have, but also getting folks who would think that these issues don't connect to them, to get them to understand that it does. I appreciate your intentionality always in connecting these issues, particularly to inequities for communities of color. And in this particular context, indoor and outdoor pollution, as well as what is showing up and what we're seeing in the COVID-19 crisis. If we don't do that and express that sense of intentionality, it won't happen. And I think that adds to the sense of urgency, not just because we know that climate change is a major issue in threatening our very existence, but when you add the level of inequities that we're talking about, there are certain communities that have for a long time felt that their existence has been, frankly, I just lost my train of thought. I blame it on the baby and not sleeping at night. But there are certain communities, obviously, putting aside the conversation around climate change, that have been living in poverty, that have been living without for so long that their existence is always sort of in question, right? And so I appreciate you connecting it to the climate change conversation, the climate justice issue, the environmental justice issue, because I think that's the only way that we get these issues to move forward with all of us being at the table. So thank you, Councilor O'Malley, for your leadership. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, I will certainly echo what my colleagues have already said as I look for a show of hands of folks who want to sign on. Madam Clerk, if you could please add Councilor Braden, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Campbell, Councilor Sabi George, Councilor Wu, Councilor Edwards, Councilor Arroyo, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Mejia. Please also add the chair. And I believe you have Councilor Bach from when she spoke. Yes. Docket 0718 will be referred to the Committee on Environment, Resiliency, and Parks. And now we will move on to personnel orders. Madam Clerk, if you could please read docket 0719.
Docket 0719, Councilor Janey for Councilor Mejia.
Councilor Mejia seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0719. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay, the ayes have it. Docket 0719 has passed. Madam Clerk, we'll go on to docket 0720.
Docket 0720, Councilor Janey for Councilor Edwards.
Councilor Edwards seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0720. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
The ayes have it. Docket 0720 has been passed. We'll go on to docket 0721.
Docket 0721, Councilor Janey for Councilor Flynn.
Councilor Flynn seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0721. All those in favor say aye.
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 The ayes have it. Docket 0721 has been passed. Madam Clerk, yep.
Thank you. Docket 0722, Councilor Janey for Councilor Flynn.
Councilor Flynn seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0722. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0722 has been passed.
Docket 0723, Councilor Janey for Councilor Baker.
Councilor Baker seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0723. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0723 has been passed.
Docket 0724, Councilor Janey for Councilor Baker.
Councilor Baker seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0724.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0724 has been passed.
Docket 0725, Councilor Janey for Councilor Campbell.
Councilor Campbell seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0725. All those in favor say aye.
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 Ayes have it. Docket 0725 has passed.
Docket 0726, Councilor Janey for Councilor Campbell.
Councilor Campbell seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0726. All those in favor say aye.
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 Nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0726 has been passed. We will now move on to late files. I'm informed by the clerk that there are 2, and I still frown upon late files. But because we have a break next week, and I don't want colleagues to have to wait 2 weeks, we are entertaining them. And so I want to let folks know. So first, in the absence of objection, these matters are being added to the agenda. Seeing and hearing no objections, I want to alert my colleagues that Michelle is sending the matters to you in an email so that you have them properly before you. She's doing that right now. These are late file matters that are offered by Councilor Asabi George, and there are 2 of them, and I'm going to ask the clerk, as you guys look into your email boxes, your inboxes, the clerk to read the matters into the record. Madam Clerk, could you start with? Yeah, we're going to keep them separate. Yep. So if you could do the first one, that would be great.
Offered by City Councilor Anissa Asabi George in the City Council. Order for hearing regarding the creation of a small business reopening task force for the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas on May 18th, Governor Baker released a plan to loosen social distancing measures during the COVID-19 pandemic in 4 phases based on progression of 6 public health indicators. And whereas small business owners have not had a real seat at the table to discuss what safe reopening looks like, nor is there sufficient guidance from the state or the city to fully guide businesses as they reopen. Therefore, be it ordered that the appropriate committee of Boston City Council holds a hearing to consider creating a task force on small businesses to create Boston's plan to safely reopen, maintaining social distancing and protective measures.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. The chair recognizes Councilor Asabi George. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate your indulgence with these 2 late files this afternoon. I filed this hearing order in response to the governor's plan to reopen the state now and the city on June 1st. The hearing order calls for the creation of a small business task force to advise the city on a reopening plan. The governor's advisory group did not represent a cross-section of small businesses in Massachusetts. The city needs to hear from our small businesses in order to inform or write our reopening plan. On Monday, I had a conversation with 35 women who are small business owners. We talked at length about their concerns regarding reopening their businesses and keeping their employees and customers safe. We talked, it is clear that there hasn't been enough guidance for these businesses during the initial closing in March and April, and now during the conversation for reopening. Currently, the city is doing a great job through the Office of Small Business Development and under the leadership of their chief. But we need to do more, and we need to make sure that small businesses in our city are at the table writing the plan to prepare for their reopening. As a small business owner myself, I am grateful that the city is continuing to provide support and have conversations with businesses across our neighborhood. However, small business owners themselves have a very unique perspective on how to inform and prescribe a reopening plan. Other countries are far ahead of us and have reopened safely. It is possible to do, but we need everyone at the table weighing in on how we determine when and how it is safe to reopen. Councilor Wu and Councilor Arroyo had a great hearing about the need for an equitable recovery. That has to be part of our planning. Having our own small business advisory task force would ensure that every concern is brought up and addressed. I look forward to having this hearing and the creation of a task force, as well as the work that lies ahead for our small business owners in all of our neighborhoods. Every small business owner wants to reopen safely for themselves, for their employees, and for their customers. They need a seat at the table in order to write that plan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Councilor Asabi George. As with other dockets before us, we'll certainly allow the opportunity for speakers. Seeing a couple of blue hands, I will call upon folks now, starting with the Chair of Small Business, Councilor Mejia, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I'm really excited and thankful to the maker for this hearing order. As someone who has been in direct communication and contact with some of our most vulnerable businesses in the city of Boston, I understand how important it is for us to think about the equitable recovery of these, having also joined Councillor Wu and Councillor Arroyo in that hearing as one of the co-sponsors. I heard directly from businesses as well. And so I'm really excited about this hearing order and making sure that when we talk about businesses who are struggling, and I'm always about all means all, is really looking at a way that we can do a deeper dive into those businesses who have very limited capacity in terms of the English, the digital divide. I think when I think about readiness, I think we need to be really thoughtful and strategic about a lot of these businesses out here who have been juggling and struggling for far too long with very limited capacity. So I am excited about this hearing and look forward to hosting it and bringing the voices of those who are most impacted front and center. Thank you, Councillor Asabi George, for your hearing order, and look forward to partnering with you on this process.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councillor Braden. Councillor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very grateful to Councillor Asabi George for bringing forward this hearing order. Our small businesses are the lifeblood of our communities and our main streets, and it's really important that they return to business again in a safe and an orderly manner. I also want to give a shout out to bring into the conversation the small family-owned daycare providers who are really going to be essential to an orderly return to work, and they are small businesses. Many of them are women-owned and immigrant-owned small businesses in our communities, and I really look forward to their inclusion in the conversation, but also to have a really broad-ranged conversation in establishing a task force and to bring an orderly return to business in the city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Braden. That home phone sounds like my landline, but it's not. I'm not sure who it is, but you may need.
It's mine. I'm sorry for the interruption. It's really.
So you couldn't stop it because you were talking. Anyway, thank you so much for that, Councillor Braden. The chair recognizes Councillor Edwards. Councillor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam President, excuse me. I want to commend the maker. I absolutely support this conversation. I just wanted to make sure that we understood that the conversation is about creating the task force, not that we shouldn't be helping small businesses or getting their perspective. And so in that vein, with creating a task force, I want to assess, one, who is appointing the members of the task force? Is this going to be mayoral appointments, or is it going to be city council? Two, what is the definition of a small business? You know, a lot of businesses would consider themselves smalls if they're not being publicly traded. So I think that that's important that you explain what is small. Also, how are you going to make sure that we have a representative from all industries, from childcare to restaurants to whatever you want to call our self-employed individuals going to be part of this? I think a definition of who is small, who's going to be appointed, and also the kind of power you expect this task force to have. Ultimately, will they be working with the city to come up with the zoning or come up with the recovery amounts? Those are all big things, and I think that I would love to have that kind of narrowed down by the time we have this conversation. Otherwise, you know, it could be an unruly conversation when the ultimate goal is to set up a task force. So I support you 100%, Councillor Asabi George. I am so excited for this, but again, in terms of being able to make sure who is small, who's appointing, what powers will they have, what seats are we having? And one seat that I do think is important is one of workers. I know what I said, workers, not necessarily labor. There are a lot of small businesses that have workers, part-time workers, who don't want to come back to work because they either are making more money in unemployment or are scared to death to come back to work. So I would love to know that workers will also have a voice and be sitting on this task force. So thank you so much for your leadership, Councillor Asabi George. I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The chair now recognizes Councillor Bach. Councillor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to commend the maker and just say that I think certainly what I've been hearing, and I think what all my district and at-large colleagues have been hearing, is just, the city level is where the rubber meets the road in terms of what this actually looks like for our businesses. And I think that although there are many guidelines now on the state's website, in some sense, there's not as much support on people's path to get there. And I think that we're going to need to really take the lead as a city on thinking about how we reopen industries safely for, as Councilor Edwards said, the workers, for the business owners, for the customers. I don't think that this work and the way that it rolls out in Boston safely for all of our constituents can be left to the state. And so I think it's, and what I hear from what I heard this morning, I met with a whole bunch of restaurants in my district, and what they said was, look, you've got to order food in advance for a restaurant. There are all kinds of logistics. It can't be, you wait and then one day it's like open tomorrow. So I really think we need to be having those proactive conversations, and that even though, this whole reopening conversation is guided by and has to be guided by the public health conversation. And so we're going to be operating within uncertainty as long as we're operating within a public health framework and waiting to see what the parameters of that are. I still think there's a lot that we could be doing proactively. So I just want to commend the maker and say I think it's a great idea for us to have a task force on this front.
Thank you for that. The chair recognizes Councilor Campbell. Councilor Campbell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I join my colleagues in applauding Councilor Sabi George for the hearing order and for flagging the sad reality that this body and frankly many folks in administration weren't meaningfully allowed to participate in the conversation around reopening. And there's obviously incredible value we could have brought, not just because of our unique perspectives, but because of the constituents we serve and what we're hearing in our respective districts or across the entire city. I too echo Councilor Edwards' comments, and that I'd love to learn more in terms of the details and look forward to the hearing where we figure that out. But I also want to add, it takes a long time, it seems, to set up task force and to sort of get a body that we all might appreciate to then have the conversation. So in the meantime, would love for that hearing to talk about how do we as colleagues come together around really serious concerns with respect to the reopening conversation, not just in terms of how we define our small businesses, the importance of including childcare and childcare providers. We use one. There is such a gray area. The families that go to the provider we use are so confused. How do we also, of course, not only include workers, customers, but then this equity conversation that we keep talking about with the administration, where is that? How do we incorporate that? All of us, I think, have real concerns around the safety piece, the public health piece. I have serious concerns around the public health and safety piece, because I know that in our district, we still have people who are getting incredibly sick or dying. And yet a sector of this Commonwealth is talking about reopening, which I think is extremely troubling. So how do we come together, recognizing that the COVID-19 is showing up differently in certain neighborhoods and responding appropriately? So look forward to the hearing, Councilor Sabi George. Madam President, please add my name, and thank you for indulging us in going a little bit longer.
Thank you so much. And as we wrap up, I think this is definitely an important topic. I know many of you share my concerns with what seems to be the lack of plans coming at the state in terms of supporting our small business. I think it is an important conversation. I will allow Councilor Sabi George to have a final word before we move on. Councilor Sabi George.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to all of my colleagues for their advice and thoughts on this hearing order. It is a complex world that we find ourselves living in, and within our small business community, there is a wide variety of different business types and different business models, some that have needed to adjust over the last few months, some who will need to adjust in the coming months. And as much as this is a response to a public health crisis, and we need to have that lens, business owners and operators and employees who are doing the work every day really do need a seat at the table in determining that prescription. So I do look forward to moving quickly on this, and really do appreciate your comments and questions today, as it will inform the work that lies immediately ahead. Thank you again, Madam President.
Appreciate that. I know many speakers indicated that they wanted to sign on, but by a show of physical hands, make this easy. Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. If you could please add Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Braden, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Bach, Councilor Edwards, Councilor Arroyo, Councilor Mejia, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Campbell. Please also add the chair. And please add, well, nope, she's not here.
Councilor Wu asked in the chat if she could be added.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be a problem because she's not physically here to be added. So anyway.
I think it's her video that's not on.
Her aren't here. Okay, I see her
Here,
right.
she just can't
Okay,
type.
okay, yeah, so please add Wu and please add the chair. I just want to make sure that she's actually here. This late file matter will be referred to Small Business and Workforce Development. Madam Clerk, we're going to go on to the second late file matter, which everyone has in front of them. And this one is a resolution. If you could read that, I will then call upon Councilor Asabi-George. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Offered by City Councilor Anissa Asabi-George in the City Council, resolution calling for the creation of a helpline during the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas on May 18th, Governor Baker released a plan to loosen social distancing measures during the COVID-19 pandemic in 4 phases, based on progression of 6 public health indicators. Whereas a safe reopening requires that every worker has the necessary resources to feel safe returning to their workplace, interacting with coworkers, employers, and other professional contacts and consumers. And therefore be it resolved that the Boston City Council and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts create a helpline for workers and consumers to report workplaces not adhering to the social distancing and other protective measures.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Asabi-George.
Thank you again, Madam President. I filed this resolution in response to the governor's plan to reopen the state now and the city on June 1st. This resolution calls for the creation of a helpline for workers and consumers to reach out to when their workplace is not adhering to the recommended protective measures. The governor's plan relies on good intention and self-reporting of employers to enforce protective measures to keep their employees and customers safe. But the truth is, not all employers are able to or choose to ensure social distancing and workplace hygiene. It's also important to note, based on our the last hearing order I just filed, that the lack of very clear and directive information, I think partly because it's not designed by small business owners, is really hard to put into place if it doesn't make sense to the business owner and the business model. If we are to reopen smoothly with no new surges, then everyone needs to feel safe at work. We need a kind of pressure release valve so that the city is able to intervene, or at the very least, track where a potential outbreak might occur due to unsafe workplace conditions. I've had several conversations with my team from the City Council, as well as my team here at my small business, about our plans to return to work. Their opinions and concerns matter to me. On Monday, I had this great conversation with a group of women who are small business owners here in Boston. I know that they are all concerned about the safety of their employees and the safety of their customers. I know that they will do the right thing, especially if the right thing makes sense to running a business. We all need employers on the same page, and because we are in this together, a safe reopening requires a safe workplace. I seek suspension of the rules and passage of this resolution, calling for a COVID-19 helpline.
Thank you so much. Seeing no blue hands, I will ask for folks who show of physical hands for folks who want to sign on. Madam Clerk, if you could please add Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Braden, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Mejia, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Edwards, Councilor Bach, Councilor Campbell, and Councilor Royal. Please also add the chair. Counselor Asabi George
Madam
seeks.
President, this is Counselor Wu. I'm having some video issues, but could you add me too? Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And please also add Counselor Wu. Counselor Asabi George seeks suspension of the rules and adoption of this resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed,
Aye.
nay. The ayes have it, and this late file resolution has been adopted. Moving on in our agenda, nothing in the green sheets, so we will go straight to announcements. And I will acknowledge my colleagues who have their blue hands raised. Wonderful. The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Central staff for last week's historic hearing where we were able to live translate in multiple languages our language access and parity hearing. I just wanted to also thank you, Madam President, for your leadership and your commitment and making sure that all our constituents are able to connect and participate in civics. And so I just a deep heartfelt thank you to Central staff for their hard work throughout this transition and everything that they did to help us prepare for our big hearing. And to my colleague and co-sponsor, Councillor Flynn, for your long-term commitment to language access and all things that deal with immigrant communities. It was just a pleasure working in collaboration with you on that hearing last week. So thank you to my colleagues who also participated. And just really in the spirit of this continued collaboration, I'm really looking forward to, I'm new in my role as the business chair, and I'm really looking to my colleagues to lean on me and to bring me along into different conversations that are happening on issues that are impacting small businesses. So really grateful to Councilor Asabi George for the community conversation that she held this week, as well as the work that came from there, just encouraging my colleagues to continue to plug us in and figuring out ways that we can help support the work. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm waving a gavel like Chairwoman Bach here. Let's keep our remarks brief if we can. Wonderful. The chair recognizes Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to give a shout out to the Consul General of Israel to New England, and also to the combined Jewish philanthropies for their $11,000 donation to the Cape Verdean Association of Boston to help them buy PPE equipment. I got a number of calls from friends and supporters in the Cape Verdean community. They were actually ecstatic about that donation. So in trying times, we're seeing an outpouring of support from philanthropic organizations across the city and beyond. And it's these types of donations that are coming in from businesses and individuals and other entities that I strongly recommend continue to do so, particularly for our nonprofits who are, in some instances, hemorrhaging at this point because all of their spring galas were postponed. So more work and more contributions hopefully will be coming in. And lastly, and I want to compliment our colleague, Councilor Edwards, for reminding me, want to adjourn and give a shout out to Bobby Joe Lista. I know Bobby Joe. I worked with Bobby Joe as an assistant DA and also as a member of the Boston City Council. Bobby was about to enter his 30th year as a city employee, one of our unsung heroes in combating youth and violent crime as a street worker. Tragically died a couple of weeks ago due to injuries sustained in a fire at his home. But Bobby led the efforts. He was in the courtrooms, he was in the police stations. Most importantly, he was on the street, he was in the corners, he was in our public housing developments, making sure that he was changing the trajectory of individuals, both their minds and the decisions that we're making, and countless people Bobby was able to save through his efforts. And he also led efforts on core reform and criminal justice reform. So because he lived it, Bobby, for those that don't know, was served 15 years of a sentence of a crime he didn't commit, was released after being in prison for 15 years. And a quick shout out to the allies in this fight was Bobby and Chris Muse, who his attorneys fought close to 10 years for his release. So, and Bobby immediately upon his release went right to work and became one of our street workers. And again, he died tragically, but nonetheless, his efforts were a big part of our community policing, was a big part of how we reduce crime and violence in Boston. And he's a big reason why we're a model And so for those that knew and worked with Bobby, my thoughts and prayers with them. But he was just an unsung hero that needs to be mentioned. And I appreciate Councilor Edwards for reminding me to do that today.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to make a brief plug for our hearing coming up next week, next Wednesday, at 10 a.m. on May 28th. We're going to have a hearing on occupational presumption, which is related to occupational health and the issue of our frontline workers who are exposed to COVID get infected or even die with COVID, that there should be a presumption that it is an occupationally acquired illness and that they should be protected by occupational health. So I look forward to a very vigorous conversation about that, and I invite all my colleagues to come and come to that hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor O'Malley. Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Just briefly, I wanted to alert the council about two hearings that were held last week. One was docket 0643 and Councilor Edwards' Government Ops Committee on voting preparedness. The other 0640, Councilor Mejia's committee, small business on third-party vendors, which I co-sponsored alongside the at-large and district councilors from South Boston. Very briefly, I'll start with 643 because that was a more promising result. Commissioner Tavares of the Elections Department, as well as Chief Registrar Sabino Piemonte, talked about some great preparation and steps that we are taking as a city. Sadly and incredibly disappointingly, the Secretary of State opted not to participate or send a designee to have this conversation with us. That was incredibly disappointing because as we all know, the Secretary of State sets elections perimeters and ground rules going forward. And a lot of what we are trying to do to make sure that all of our voters have a safe opportunity to participate in their civic duty this September and November hinges on action from the Secretary of State. Nevertheless, we hope that there will be some good action coming out of the Secretary's office working alongside the legislature. That would include early voting sanctioned for the state primary on September 1st, which currently is not determined yet, but we hope it will be, as well as mailing every registered voter in Boston an absentee ballot application, as well as making it easier for individuals to request an absentee ballot using an online portal, as I've been trying to get done since I needed it as a college student in the early 2000s and late 90s. And so the city is ready and prepared to do everything we can to make it safe and increase opportunities for voters. We're also looking at increasing the stipend for election clerks, wardens, and assistant wardens. And the commissioner asked me, and through me, all of us, to help spread the word. So that's something that we'll be doing in the weeks ahead. So that was very positive, and I know the chair has agreed to allow for a working session perhaps in the next couple of weeks. And I also want to thank MassVote and other great advocates who participated. Secondly, third-party vendors. I don't know if Councilors Flynn or Flaherty want to add anything. It was incredibly disappointing. While we did appreciate that there was one staff member from one of the big four, perhaps soon to be big three, third-party vendors, there seemed to be little appetite for them to try to cap the fees. We heard from a number of small business owners, some small restaurateurs who are being absolutely hammered by these institutions. We also heard about some of the duplicitous practices that these third-party vendors employ. To wit, a third-party vendor, all of the big four have been known to create and list restaurants who aren't in partnership with them to then almost add as a call center to take these orders. They then place them with the local restaurant, and many times they charge more. So they're making a profit, and you've got restaurateurs who aren't even aware of the fact that they're on some web-based portal. So I've been very delighted and heartened by the number of cities, the most recent one being New York, which has capped the fees. I still think that it is crucial that in Boston we cap these fees, and look forward to drafting an ordinance if we can't get action ahead of time. So we'll stay working together on this, but these are two very, very important matters. Thank you, all of you participated in one fashion or another, and look forward to continuing work and oversight of both of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Edwards. Councilor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I wanted to simply acknowledge the passing of a constituent of mine, Maureen Barone. She is the sister actually of Mike Barone, who works for the city in the Parks Department, twin sister. And her passing it was due to a long battle against cancer. And I just wanted to acknowledge her passing, know that she now rests in peace, and that her loss, it's a loss for the entire district, if not the city of Boston. And we also grieve her along with Mike and the family. So I just wanted to lift that up.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councillor Bach. Councillor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask unanimous consent to make a brief statement.
Yes.
Um,
You've been hanging out with that too much.
You know, to Councillor Edwards' point, right now in the season of COVID-19, we're experiencing so many losses that it's really unfathomable. And I think, you know, they're swamping us. We can't find time to note each one as we should. And I think what's also hard about that is that these current losses can crowd out our opportunities to commemorate other people who mean a great deal to us and whose absences and legacies endure in our lives. So in that spirit, I want to say a few words today about Robert Alexander Santana, who will be one of the people we are closing our meeting in tribute to today. He should have been 31 this Sunday, a month older than me. And he's the older brother of my director of operations, Henry Santana, who most of you know. He's the man from Mission Hill with the most incredible smile in my district. And like Councillor Mejia, Robert came to this country as a child from the Dominican Republic with his parents. He was really part of the team as they made their way here. He was his mom's best friend, his father's pride, his younger siblings' constant role model and advisor and friend. Bright and determined, he was the first in his family to go to college and became in his 20s a constant reader. He was a boy and a man who saw the best in everyone and who fiercely loved his family and just spending time with them. And to lose him 3.5 years ago left a huge hole in all their hearts and in their family gatherings. But I know that he's living on in each of them. And I really see that every time my staffer, Henry, is tutoring a younger student at Alice Taylor, or writing an email to a constituent, or planning summer programming for our youth, or delivering a box of food, his brother Robert is enduring part of that work. So as we go into this weekend, I just wanted to say to Robert's family, La Familia Santana, yo espero que, y yo sé que, su nombre y su vida es un bendito recuerdo siempre para ustedes. Thank you, Madam President.
Gracias. Muchas gracias. The chair recognizes Councillor Flynn.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. And just want to echo what Councilor O'Malley mentioned about the hearing, the third-party delivery fees that are being charged by these companies, hurting our small restaurants. It was a very good hearing, and you know, we desperately need to cap these fees because they're putting so many people at risk, including our frontline workers, our dishwashers, our waitresses, our waiters. When people are down on their luck, and as restaurants are now, and they're on the ground, you know, the Boston way is lending a hand, not keeping them on the ground. So thank you for the leadership of Councilor O'Malley and Councilor Flaherty as well for that hearing, and looking forward to continuing to work with the administration on trying to get a cap on these third-party delivery companies charging 40% commission. That's outrageous. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Councillor Flynn. Seeing no other blue hands, we will continue to move on. I really appreciate folks lifting up Bobby Joe Leister, and just want to remind the council that we did pay tribute to him earlier at the end of April. So we did recognize Bobby Joe Leister. Also, just another reminder, we've been talking a lot about, again, businesses reopening this week. Important reminder that it's still very important to limit your time to the extent possible to your home, to only leave for food and fitness, to continue to cover up your face when you go outdoors, to limit contact, to physically distance. All of those things are incredibly important. Do not be confused that businesses opening up means that things are back to normal. Things are not going back to normal. We don't want things to go back to normal. We need to continue to protect ourselves and to protect each other. So please continue to be safe. Please continue to stay engaged in this work. And now we will move on to close out our meeting with memorials. Again, many thanks to all of you, my colleagues on the council, for the work that you are doing every day. And for all of those behind the scenes who make us look good, our own individual teams, and of course, central staff, many thanks. And we will now close out our meeting with memorials. So for Councilor Bach, thank you for your words. For Councilor Bach, Robert Alexander Santana. For Councilor Breeden, Sister Helen Halliday, Gladys Layton, and Francis Nunez McCall, and Margaret Meek. For Councilors Baker and Asabi George, William Diz Dever, and John O. Scannell. For Councilor Campbell, Derek Fitzpatrick, and Paul Richards. And for the chair, Zola Wedborn. A moment of silence. The chair moves that when the council adjourns today, it does so in the memory of the aforementioned individuals, and we are scheduled to meet again on Wednesday, June 3rd at 12 noon. For the safety of the general public and all those involved, this meeting will be held virtually and posted online. Viewers can watch the council meeting live on YouTube by visiting boston.gov/city-council-TV. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and this council meeting is
Councilor Mejia and Councilor President Janey. And